Let's start with the data that defines where we're starting 2026. In 2025, China's clean power output, including solar, wind, nuclear, and bioenergy, crossed a historic threshold, generating over 40% of its electricity from clean sources and sending the value of CleanTech exports above $180 billion. That alone sets the stage for next year's competition. Meanwhile, India delivered a record 44.5 gigawatts of renewable capacity in 2025, almost doubling its annual additions and pushing total non-fossil energy capacity above 260 gigawatts. These milestones establish two very different but equally consequential starting points for 2026. 2025 was the launchpad, but 2026 will be the real altitude test. China enters 2026 with a clear strategic posture, leveraging its CleanTech machine for global dominance. China's clean energy capacity boom fuels massive exports of batteries, solar panels, and EVs. But this year, the government also warned domestic firms against price collusion and fraud, signaling a major shift toward market stability over cutthroat expansion. That's important. A highly competitive, rapidly expanding market works in building capacity. But once the capacity exists, the next priority is control, not chaos. Expect China in 2026 to focus on higher margins, quality scaling, and supply chain coordination. Cheap solar was the test phase. In 2026, we'll see China decide who gets access to that cheap tech and under what terms. Add to that China's billion-plus-dollar overseas clean technology investments, which have reached roughly $180 billion in recent years, as firms seek international markets, particularly where Western supply chains have tightened. In 2026, these investments will start translating into strategic influence, not just product sales. But China's clean energy story is not just about exports. It's about grid infrastructure, batteries, and the economics of storage. Chinese energy storage manufacturing, especially lithium-ion batteries, could surge another 75% this year as domestic reforms and international demand grow. In 2026, whoever controls storage doesn't just power grids, they power economic resilience. India's 2025 wasn't just incremental growth. It was record-breaking capacity additions followed by strengthened industrial momentum. India's 44.5 GWs renewable addition dwarfs previous years, led by solar, but paired with a wind revival. That pushes India into a new phase. No longer is the challenge simply installation. In 2026, the big questions become, can the grid handle it? Can manufacturing keep pace? Can India avoid supply shocks? Major Indian energy conglomerates, including Adani's clean energy divisions, have marked 2025 as a milestone year, scaling solar, wind, and even green hydrogen projects. Ford built cars. India is building an ecosystem. Also emerging as an unsung but critical issue in 2026 will be critical minerals and supply chain independence. India remains dependent on imports for key resources like rare earth elements, and 2026 could be the year the country aggressively reshapes its supply strategy, something analysts now see as essential for true energy security. And there's real friction now between China and India that could shape next year's landscape. China has initiated a trade dispute with India at the WTO over solar cells and modules, potentially escalating into broader protectionist pressures if unresolved. A dynamic that could accelerate India's domestic manufacturing initiatives. 2026 could be remembered as the year CleanTech became more than collaboration. It became competition with tariffs and trade wars. It's also vital to see this in the wider context. Global fossil fuel dynamics and climate stress will shape how CleanTech is adopted. Scientists warn 2025 was one of the hottest years on record, intensifying heat waves, storms, and droughts globally. An indication that climate impacts will add urgency to CleanTech decisions in 2026. In parallel, other regions, particularly the US and Europe, are wrestling with mixed signals, policy rollbacks, storage growth, and data center power demands that complicate clean deployment. What this means for 2026 is simple at the highest level. Asia is pulling ahead, not just in capacity, but in policy clarity and industrial strategy. If 2025 was the year of global turbulence, 2026 is shaping up as the year the future chooses a direction. China and India are not just adding panels and turbines, they are writing the economic rules of the next decade. China's strategic export and storage dominance and India's rapid build-out and market expansion set up 2026 as a decisive pivot year. Who wins this year will define global energy leadership for the 2030s. If you want expert analysis and unbiased insight into the clean energy shifts nobody else is explaining, subscribe to CleanTech Insider, where we unpack not just the science, but the power behind the headlines.